if you planted your potatoes early in the spring, and the first earlies are always planted on the 17th of March, St Patrick's Day, then you will have by now have already eaten some of your crop, and it was really fantastic. One of the greatest things in the summertime is to have your own crop of first early potatoes. Now we're in August and the main crop potatoes are outside there basking away in the sunshine, but we're now planting potatoes for Christmas. And I don't know what it is, we get letters by the thousand asking about how do I grow potatoes for Christmas. And of course your main crop potatoes will last until Christmas, unless you've eaten them beforehand. But there's nothing like having some first earlies, some really old-fashioned new potatoes as a part of your Christmas meal, and this is how you do it. Now, in order to understand the basics of growing potatoes for Christmas, you have to understand something about potatoes themselves. Generally speaking, potatoes come in 3 different forms of 2 different varieties, and it can become quite complicated. First of all, we have the waxy, floury debate, and we're going to more or less ignore that for now. But of the waxy and floury potatoes, you also get earlies, first earlies, second earlies, and main crop, and a whole kind of variation between the early potatoes and the main crop potatoes. Now this is Cara, and I've been using it as a first early, and it really does work well. Beautiful potatoes, but they become quite large, which is essentially what I want for Christmas dinner, a big fat spud on my plate. So I'm going to plant these. Now first earlies take 12 weeks from planting to cropping. Now it's August, we've got the whole of September, October, November and then December, so I've got 16 weeks to play with. Second earlies take about 13 to 15 weeks from planting to cropping. Main crop take 20 weeks. So you're better off if you're going to grow potatoes for Christmas with first earlies, because they come to a crop much more quickly. Now this particular first early and this set of potatoes I've got here, when I planted them out in March, and we've already eaten, thank you very much, I kept some behind and I popped them in the fridge to hold them back, and that means that now they're chitted ready and are desperate to burst forth. And all I'm going to do is plant them in the ground in the tunnel, because of course they're going to get off to a great start, but they have a long slow finish because the temperatures reduce from October onwards. Potatoes don't like to grow in those conditions. So the first set of potatoes I'm doing every 2 weeks. These I started 2 weeks ago, and I'm putting a couple more in now, so that make sure we've got out of this little area some potatoes actually ready at Christmas. And quite simply, all I'm going to do is bury them about 6 to 8 inches in the ground, and then earth up all the way through the frosts into December. Keep them as frost free as you possibly can, and they should be perfect by Christmas. So that should be really snug and warm. In a couple of weeks it'll be pushing up above the surface, I'll be piling up, and then water. Make sure that during the hot days of the August polytunnel, you're going to water. Make sure that they don't get blight, particularly if you've got tomatoes in the same tunnel. Then you can transfer blight from outside to inside and then to your Christmas potatoes, and that's one of the biggest problems you can have in the polytunnel. That said, you may not have a polytunnel, so we're going to have a look at 2 other ways of growing potatoes for Christmas. Now, we're getting to the time of year when grow bags are becoming cheap, because everybody's got their tomatoes in grow bags. Not so many people are buying them now, so you can pick up good quality grow bags for not a lot of money. And all I'm doing is popping the top so that I can rip it open much more easily. Now you don't need a polytunnel for this. All that you need is a fence. And if you've got a fence, like I used to have a fence next to my carport, and the carport was always really well sheltered, and it was very rarely frosty. Whenever it was, particularly my fence was right next door to the outlet of my boiler, so it was quite warm there, and I never really had any frost problems there. And all that you have to do is pop your bag in half over your fence like this, and then open up the top, and I've already made my perforations to help me do this, and the bag will eventually rest on the floor, so there'll be no real problems. Now I've got some nice warm compost in my bag, and notice if you get a grow bag, it's always black on the inside, so that you don't have to keep this light proof. So that's fantastic. All I'm going to do, one potato nicely inside each half, and I will get a really good crop from this grow bag. Now in essence, there's not a lot of food in a grow bag, so in essence I'm using this like hydroponics. The compost inside is just a material in which the plant is going to grow, but I'm going to feed this regularly, at least once every 3 weeks, from start right to December. One thing I have to do is stab the bottom, just so that the water can escape and we don't have any rotting potatoes. So a fence, a grow bag, one Christmas dinner. Now everybody has room for a grow bag. Well, that's actually not actually true, because many people don't have room for a grow bag, but you do have room for a shopping bag. And this is the next way that I've grown Christmas potatoes, and it takes into account the fact that a potato will literally grow anywhere, and so long as you keep it well watered, well fed, and out of the frost, it'll grow. And so I've got a well-known shopping bag here. It's better to use the ones that you pay 10p for than the ones that you get for free, because the ones that you get for free can rock about, and I'll show you why that's going to happen in a moment. They can rock about and break, and then you end up with a mess on the floor, and that defeats the object. Now I'm emptying my grow bag into my shopping bag so that there's plenty of compost inside. Very often these are so well compressed that it takes a bit of work to get it all out. And it's not rocket science. All that you have to do is completely fill your bag with compost, and then add your potato to it. Now quite literally, I'm only going to use one potato for this bag. Potato roots communicate with one another. The further apart you can grow them, the better they will be. The world record, I think it's using one of the Pentland potatoes, was nearly a ton, I think, or a ton and a quarter, something along that region, with just 5 seed potatoes, which sounds like a lot, doesn't it? An awful lot. I tried it, and I didn't get a ton, but I got nearly half a ton, and I think half a ton of spuds from 5 seed potatoes isn't bad at all. So here I have my compost. Now, I've said this before, there's an awful lot of bad compost on the market. When you smell your compost, it should be sweet. It shouldn't smell of the riverbed. It's got to be really nice and warm. And I'm looking around for what I've done with my potatoes. Here they are. And choose a nice decent round one that's not all shriveled away. This one started to grow. Remember, I cooled these down for some time in the fridge probably about 8 weeks, and they're going to burst into life. So one potato covered in there, and then one more turning in. Don't even need to hold this bag because it's porous, as I've found many a time when I've broken milk bottles or wine bottles. Now this, if you haven't got any space, you can do the best thing in the garden, and in the polytunnel you can hang it up from your top bar or from your crop bars and just leave it there to grow. Or if you've not got a polytunnel, you can hang it up on a hook, just like a hanging basket. And when the bad weather comes along and when it's really cold, just pick it up and take it somewhere where it's frost free. Then take it back outside again when it's above freezing. This is going to produce for you one bag of potatoes you will never forget.